campers. This is part 2 to my shadow work exercises video that I recently posted. So in this video, in part 2, we're gonna analyze your answers to help you to really fully do that shadow work and fully dive into that past 9-year cycle. If you haven't watched part 2, you have to watch this first. There should be a couple of days of difference to give yourself time to think about those questions and the shadow work exercises that I've given to you. Otherwise, it makes no sense to watch this video immediately after part 1 or first. So you have to give yourself days to actually do those exercises. All right, so if you've done that, if you already watched part 1, contemplated on your answers, journaled, and you have your answers, we're gonna go through a couple of things around each question. So grab your journal, grab a snack, and let's dive in. So the first question was who you were 8 years ago, how different this person was, right? I ask you guys to think, is it a little bit different, someone who was a little bit different, or someone who is same, or someone who feels like is a complete stranger? So when we move through life, right, the more we grow, the more we expand, especially if you're on a journey of deep awakening, and it's an intense journey of sort of a self-discovery, you're going to reach a point when you would have found your authentic self. So that change every year, every 9 years, it's not going to be that drastic and that visible. However, we should change and we should grow. We should change, we should grow, and we should expand. So if you look back and you are the same person, it's not really a good sign. And when I say a same person, I don't mean that you live in the same apartment or house, or you have the same job, and you know, it doesn't matter. It matters you as a person, who you are, how you react to life, how you react to challenges, how you react to emotions to trigger. Have you changed? Have you grew, right? Have your energy expanded? Have you matured? So the answer to that question should always be yes. But now the question is how you change. And I've mentioned this in video that I think I posted a couple of weeks ago about that people say that people don't change, which is a complete lie, because we naturally expand. Universe expands, or we are the universe. It's impossible to stand still and not to change. The question is how we change, because if you do inner work properly, if you learn your lessons properly, you should become more resilient. You should become more soft. You should become more present. You should expand, right? You should get better in life, right? It's this infamous saying that it's very true. Life doesn't get easier. We just get better at it, right? So looking back, if you see you've changed, the question is, have I learned my lessons properly, and have I become someone who is softer, more present, more resilient, more courageous, because this is the path we should follow? Or have I armored up, thinking that I become stronger? And I'm going to give you one example that will sort of show you what I mean. When we, for example, talk about love, right? So let's say in that last 9-year cycle, you had a love experience that was very painful, maybe a karmic relationship, which caused a lot of pain, a lot of heartbreak and tears and discomfort within you, right? So if you think to yourself, I've changed, I'm a different person, I'm a better person, but you look back and you say, now I would never allow this, because now I know that all men or all women, they lie and they cheat, and I have to be watchful, and I have to guard myself, and I have to be more careful, and I have to, right? You change, but you armored up. You close your heart. You close the part of yourself. Our heart is a bridge, right? As we go through lessons, we either properly heal our heart and learn those lessons, or we armor up to avoid them in future. right? So the question is how you've changed. Again, for the journey of life or experiences, we should open as a flower. Every time we should become more, we should expand, we should open, we should become more soft, we should release fear, because fear is a consequence of separation. When you truly understand that we're all one, just experiencing this human life through a illusion of separation, and that everything has a reason and carries an opportunity of growth, and you don't take things personally, you understand there's nothing to fear, because you build resilience, right? You know that there's nothing that you couldn't overcome, whatever's going to be thrown at you. You don't have to armor up to avoid situations, but you open yourself up for situations, understanding that it's the resilience and not the strength that we have to build. So think about that. What is that change? Have you really changed for the better? Have you really, people think that they change because they become stronger, more aggressive, more, right? But resilience and growth, it comes with softness. We should become more soft, more courageous in life, more open, like I said. And the other element of that question is, how do you feel about that past version of you? Because sometimes we change, and we change for the better. We change, we soften, we become more resilient, more courageous, yes. But we still haven't fully let go of the past version of ourselves. So if you look back and you still have resentment or shame, you're like, oh my God, what did he do? Or what did she do? Or how could I be so silly? Or how could I have done these things? I would never do these things now. It means that there's still healing that needs to happen, because how we should be looking at the past version of ourselves is he, she, right? It was cute. She did the best she could. He did the best he could with what he had, with what he was given, with the level of awareness that he had. He did the best he could. And I send him my love. I release him with love. I understand, right? So similarly with relationships with other people, as long as there's any kind of feeling that is not positive or neutral, right? So we don't know how to neutralize it and just look at it that it had to happen. We still hold grudge and resentment and shame and guilt. Maybe if he'd done it better, I wouldn't be where I am. That kind of a emotion. It means that there's something that you need to work through, the relationship with the past version of you. All right, the next question I asked you is, if you would go back, how would it feel? Would you be happy to go back and live in that moment, or would it feel like a punishment because you've changed so much, or anywhere on the spectrum? So when we grow, right, when we expand, when we soften, when we heal in this journey of life, when we expand our consciousness, when we look back, we shouldn't want to go back, right? And obviously, if we live a happy life, there's going to be a variety of beautiful moments that we cherish and we hold in our hearts, those moments that we sort of lock in our mind as beautiful moments as we live through them, memories. But when you grow properly, when you expand properly, you become a version of you that is bigger and wider, that would really literally should be irrelevant to go back, right? To go back for a split second to a memory as you look at a photo, of course, it would be nice because, oh, it was such an important moment of my life. But if you really want to go back, it means that you haven't grown in a proper direction, in a direction of outwards spiral expansion, right? You're stuck somewhere, and a part of your energetic field is still stuck in the past if you feel like you would want to go back, right? Whereas if you're on that other side of the coin, that you feel like, oh my God, going back would feel like punishment, it is on some level the way you're supposed to feel. You shouldn't want to go back, like I said. But if you really grew and released, you wouldn't feel like it would be a punishment, because when you truly grow and expand toward the right direction, it becomes irrelevant, right? It becomes an experience, so to speak. So if you were forced to go back to a relationship that ended up being a disaster, and you know that it was a karmic relationship, and you feel like it would be a punishment to go back, but if you really were forced to, if you actually expanded your consciousness, you would feel like, well, I don't want to go back, but if something is making me to go back, I don't know, maybe I can experience it differently. Maybe I can experience it better. Now I'm wiser. Now I'm better, right? So it should be neutral, right? The idea of going back, it shouldn't cause, yeah, let's do it because it was better. Obviously, if it was better, you haven't expanded towards a different and more expanded life. But if it causes a distress and this emotion of punishment, it also means that you haven't completely closed something in that part of your life. Next thing that I asked you to analyze is what ended and what started. And this is more in context of, as you look at those new things and endings, in context of understanding that as human beings, as living physical beings, we tend not to like change. Change is uncomfortable. Change activates the ego fear, but the soul loves change because change is natural. Change is expansion, right? So if you look at what ended and what changed, again, as you look back, your feeling towards those changes and those endings and beginnings should be neutral, right? So acknowledging that change is hard and it was difficult, tapping yourself on the back that you went through this change, whether that's a breakup or change of a job or complete change of life. You should, from a perspective of now, understand why it happened, right? Understand why that change was necessary. So if you had relationships that ended, because it's usually going to be about relationships, right? I always say this to you guys, 95% of people learn through relationship because they're incapable of seeing their own reflection without another, right? So we grow through relationships. This is why we have soul contracts with people. So when you look back and you look at relationships that ended, how does it make you feel? Because if you still have that feeling of regret, right, that you lost someone that you shouldn't have lost, that was part of it, means that you did not understood the soul contract that you had with this person, because nothing that is truly ours can be lost. So if you're no longer with someone, whether that's friend or romantic relationship, if you trust that this is a true soul connection, if you have regrets that that relationship ended, it means that you don't trust what it really was, because what is yours will always circle back, whether in this lifetime or another. So it's really relevant and it really doesn't matter. And again, if we look at beginnings and endings, if you feel regret that you had certain relationship, right, it also means that you don't understand the lesson of that relationship, right? So I hope you understand what I mean, that if we look at beginnings and endings, you should understand from perspective that life is a journey of chapters. Everything has a beginning and an end. Some things end and expire. That expiration date is the same date as we will expire, right? But many things will end before. And the soul contracts, they're not valid because they're ended. And I've posted about this. You can go back to this post on my Instagram. It was a sort of a written post, as I always do, and on a blue sort of a background, about codependency. And if you read through that and you read through caption, it will help you to understand that as relationships begin and end, as we end them, we should understand the lesson and neutralize that soul contract in order to close it. So we shouldn't have regrets that it ended. We shouldn't have regrets that it happened. We shouldn't have that feeling of loss and sadness because it ended, because it doesn't mean that it had no value. So as we look at beginning and ends, the question is, do you understand the meaning of every beginning and every ending in that life, and how these chapters helped you to become who you are, and have you learned and neutralized these things that begun and ended in that cycle. And then I asked you to list out 3 biggest traumas, 3 biggest happiness, and 3 biggest fears. So when we talk about traumas, it's going to be a little bit similar to what I said when we talk about relationships. So whether it's a loss of someone, physical loss, it's a breakup, it's a physical trauma, be it abuse, disease, illness, whatever that is, bankruptcy, whatever happened in your life that caused you pain, trauma, distress, if you look at it and you don't understand that it was necessary, because through pain we grow and through pain we expand, and our soul looks for pain and seeks pain in this experience of life similarly as it seeks joy. Because ultimately what we learn on a journey of life, that we experience what we choose to experience. Every situation, and I know that if you haven't reached a certain level of consciousness, you're not going to understand it, and you're going to completely deny it, and you're going to completely like, nah, she's talking crap. But you're going to have to trust me on this one. You choose how you feel. There is no experience in life that a person of expanded consciousness, who understands the meaning of life, who remembers where we come from and where we're going, submits themselves to pain, to permanent pain, right? So there's no shame in feeling pain. We're humans, again, to experience this emotion and to experience pain. But the question is, have you grown through this pain? Today, do you understand why it happened, and that it needed to happen, and what it helped you to understand? Everything has a meaning, and I cannot go for every example here now. And if you struggle with these exercises, there's something that you don't fully understand, I invite you always to sign up for a session, and we can go through this in sort of a one-on-one analysis of these shadow work exercises with you. But there is no pain that we couldn't neutralize and that we couldn't go through and use it to become more soft and to become more resilient. So going back to that first question that we had, the question is here, did those painful experiences create someone who is softer, who is kinder, who is more open, who expanded their consciousness and now handles pain better, or someone who armored up and shelled up to never experience this pain? Right? And then the question about happiness and excitement. So here, as you list out those things that made you most happy, more excited, what I want you to think about is, did you follow that excitement? So did you have something, because passion is our compass in life, excitement is our compass in life. I always say this to you guys. So if something made you excited, something made you happy, do you feel like you followed that happiness? Do you follow that path? Do you still do these things that made you happy? Do you fully understand why it made you happy? Do you now from perspective feel it was a true happiness of a soul and true passion of a soul that will lead you to something that is a big part of your life? Or maybe you confuse that happiness with lack of something. We often talk about this when we talk about relationships. And then important one is the fear. I told you to list out two, three things that made you feel most fearful, most terrified, most petrified and nervous about doing something. So fear is something that comes to us to let us know, again, we should welcome fear, because fear is letting us know that our current thinking pattern is out of alignment. Okay, so if you're about to do something, let's say you're my beautiful divine masculines, when they know that they're ready to return to their feminism, whatever situation that is, and you feel fear. The thing that you feel that fear means that you are thinking about something that is out of alignment. So why you feel fear? Because you feel fear that you're going to be rejected, that you're not going to be successful, that you're not going to accomplish what you want. Out of alignment. Out of alignment. Fear is an indication that your mind is going toward the wrong direction. We don't talk about the action that you're about to do, but the thinking pattern. Do you know what I mean? So you want to do something, the moment you feel fear, it means that your monkey mind and your lizard brain is being activated into thinking that it's not going to work out, but it's not true. This is why the fear activates to tell you, no, 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 out of alignment thinking, you shouldn't be scared. Fear not. And in spirituality, we talk about this, that one of the most common phrases in all spiritual texts, spiritual books, whether that's for religion or spirituality, the biggest advice is fear not. Fear not. Trust. Trust in the process. Trust in your path. Trust you're being guided. Trust you're being protected. Trust that everything that happens is meant to happen. Fear not. Be courageous, right? So if you go back and you think about those moments, the question would be, have you learned? Do you now know that this fear had no merit? That this fear was rooted in lack of trust in yourself, in the universe, in your path, in God? Have you learned that lesson? Or would you still fear those things? And it's coming to my mind just now, so I'm going to say it because they're guiding me to say it. Sometimes when we talk about small fears, like you fear spiders or you fear aging, right? So completely not an actual thing, because when we fear, for example, you're going through a breakup or a divorce with someone that was part of your life for like 5, 10, 15 years, there's a fear of change. There's a fear, I'm not going to make it, or you're getting fired from your job. It's sort of a more tangible fear, right? So to speak. But when we talk about, when you're young and you fear aging, it's abstract, it's nonsense, it's given in life. It's a beautiful thing in life, the passage of time. It's why the soul comes here, right? If you feel spiders or lizards, right, it's not, it's oftentimes, I myself give this example for me in the past I feared spiders, little spiders like this, more than a lion in front of me when I went to a safari, right? It's not logical. So oftentimes those logical fears, they guide us. Again, thinking pattern out of alignment. They guide us towards something within our subconscious mind. So perhaps it's worth it to explore the symbolism, or explore it on your healing session or shamanic session, whatever is it that you do. Go a little bit deeper if you have those bit nonsense, kind of illogical fears. Just a side note. And the last question that I told you to contemplate on is, if you were to go back, what advice would you give to you? So the first, read that advice, and the first thing that we're going to analyze with that advice is not what exactly you said, but what was it? Did you, going back to the you from 9-8 years back, would you tell yourself to not to do something and avoid something? Or to change something and do it differently, do it better? Or would you just go back and say, you got this, sort of an encouragement message, right? So the type of a message, it holds a meaning as well, because if you say to yourself from 9 years ago, don't go out with this woman, right? She's evil. Or don't marry this man. It's only going to be pain and suffering, right? If you would give this advice to yourself to change something, to avoid something, it literally means that you have not learned your lesson, that you have not closed that soul contract you have with that thing or with that person, because everything happens for a reason, especially the big things, the big pains, the big disappointments, the big heartbreaks, the relationships that cause trauma, turmoil, even abuse. It happens for a reason. It's not coincidence. There is no coincidence in the universe. So if you would go back to make yourself avoid that, you're making yourself avoiding a lesson, an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to expand. So it means that you have not understood the lesson. You're trying to go the easy way, which is the ego way, because the soul wants challenge. The soul wants growth. Growth for happiness, growth for pain, growth for experiencing, right? So if that's your approach, that's the first thing that you need to analyze. Why am I trying to change the past? that led me to where I am? Is it because I don't believe I am where I'm supposed to be? Maybe it's because I haven't learned this lesson. Everything that happened in the past, we should look at it, it had to happen. Yes, it was hard. Yes, it was challenging. Yes, in a moment, the past version of me was crying and trying to avoid and trying to escape and didn't understand. But today I understand why it happened. Thank you that it happened, because it showed me an important things. And the hardest the experience, the biggest the lesson. So learn that lesson. Make sure you acknowledge that lesson, because the actual proper thing that you would want to say to your past self, if you really have expanded, if you have softened, right? If you have become more resilient, everything that I mentioned from the beginning of this video, if you walk the right path, if you learned your lesson, given an opportunity to leave a message to you from 5 years ago, 6, 7, 9 years ago, what you should want to say is just, you got this. Trust. You're on the right path. You literally wouldn't want to weekend this whole father paradox is an illusion of misunderstanding of linearity of time, which is an illusion. We cannot change what's already happened. We can only create new timelines, right? As a side note, if you're into physics, they're completely off. But we shouldn't even want to touch that. Do you know what I mean? Because if you really grew the way we're supposed to grow, grew into a person that you love, that you cherish, that you understand that everything was a stepping stone. I am who I was meant to be. I am who I needed to become, right? And I love that version of me, and I'm excited to keep exploring. And you cherish as well that past version of you. You wouldn't want to go there and yell at them and tell them to avoid something that they wouldn't probably understand, right? So you would just want to, you got this, just trust. What has to happen, has to happen. Just trust, right? Just keep going. And the other part of that question, whatever advice you would give, look at this advice and ask yourself, would you really listen to that advice? If it's a good advice, even if it's a good advice, right? Even if you think that you want to go back and say to yourself, don't go out with this woman and don't marry that man, right? Do you think that that past version of you would listen to that advice? And now the question is why? And with that level of consciousness, we reach a moment of really seeing ourselves in another and really understanding the meaning of life. Because I see many women and many men that don't learn lessons, then they end up becoming bitter and armoring up, right? And now they feel that this advice, this is exactly that. People that will go back and advise, don't marry that man and don't go, right? Which is ridiculous, because you wouldn't be the person that you are without the experience of this person. Your soul chose this experience and signed that contract. And oftentimes, sadly, I feel that these people turn into these advisors, those mothers and fathers that now suddenly they say to their daughters, don't get married, don't love, don't trust, don't do this and don't do that. And it loops us back to that first question. Right? Are you completely different? Have you changed because you're armored up? Or have you changed because you learned your lessons? Right? We should soften. We shouldn't become bitter. We shouldn't armor up. We shouldn't resent people, love, connections. We should just trust that whatever will come towards us, we will be wiser and stronger. The question is, and advice isn't, don't do it. The advice is, why do you think that you want to do it? What is it within you that needs healing, that wants to commit what we feel is that mistake, right? And we will never save people if we will, no advice to say to someone, don't do it because you have to be careful. No. In life, we don't have to be careful. We have to be wise and courageous. We have to be soft and we have to be open, just like a flower, right? All right, my angels, I hope this was helpful. Again, if you feel like you want to go deeper, I invite you to sign up for a session where we can do this sort of a one-on-one. This exercise, this 9-year cycle is really important. I hope this was helpful. I hope it helped you to understand and close that cycle. And yeah, I will see you soon.